welcome. I'm Kerry Warkia and this is Kyle McNaughton. So I just wanted to start with, we can make a difference with the stories we tell. Kia ora, Heather Ray, because that's what she said. Yay. Okay. When we pitched WARU to Te Mangai Pāho for their Digital Innovation Fund in 2015, we had an agenda. We wanted to make a film. We pitched WARU as a groundbreaking and innovative project that would be written and directed by 8 different filmmakers. And it would be shot in 8 days and with 8 10-minute long shorts. Each of the 8 vignettes was to take place in the same 10 minutes in story time, and each of the lead characters were to be wahine Māori and connected by a single event, the death of a young child. The project would have 3 outcomes: an 80-minute feature, 8 times 10-minute short films that we would release online, and a one-off TV special. We had thought through some of the potential risks involved in making something that was so non-traditional in its methodology. Where are the years of development for the script? You can't shoot a feature in just 8 days. How can you tell a story with only 8 shots? It's too low budget. It's technically unachievable. It's a tikanga minefield. And where is one going to find 8 female Māori directors? And how will you get them to work towards a single vision? These were all reasonable enough questions that we thought Te Mangai Pāho would be asking. And they were all potential reasons to not give us any money. So we were incredibly surprised when we didn't just get a yes, your project has been funded. We also got, while this is a tough and emotional subject, I am sure that you and Kyle will do us proud. Oh, do you want to talk now?
Sure, I'll say so. So why would all the funding bodies be so keen to support a project that has so many potential risks? We think maybe it was timing. It's time New Zealand saw a dramatic feature created by wahine Māori. It's been far too long. It's time to tell a story about our children, our families, and child abuse. We believe these 9 filmmakers are all at a time in their careers where they want to be bold and take on a difficult creative challenge, to tackle a challenging subject individually and as a rōpū. It's time for Māori women to be the driving creative force behind a feature, and it's time to challenge the way we develop, shoot, fund and produce film and television in Aotearoa. We want to say a big thank you to Te Mangai Pāho, New Zealand On Air, who quickly jumped in the waka as well after Māori television jumped in as well with a license fee. The New Zealand Film Commission also joined in with support for professional development for our 9 wahine Māori filmmakers. We also want to challenge our funders to continue to take on bigger and better risks on new and important stories and storytellers. We're very proud to present to you the 9 women who in only 5 months have created a remarkable piece of cinema. Chelsea Winstanley, Awanui Simich-Pene, Josephine Tewhiu, Katie Wolfe, Casey Carr, Paula Jones, Briar Grace-Smith, Renae Maihi, and Ainsley Gardiner. Each will speak for 5 minutes about what risk means to them in the context of making WARU, and that will be followed by a 15-minute question and answer session. But first, here is a little teaser. Some of them haven't seen it yet, so.
Go to sleep. I was going to spend 5 minutes crying. Ata Māori e koutou. Nā wahine e waru, kei te mihi, kei te mihi, kei te mihi kia koutou. What a journey. Still going, by the way. Risk and waru. Women making a film. Pretty risky. Wahine Māori making a film. Super risky. Risky. Wahine Māori making a film about child abuse and murder. Shit. Now we're on the risky. Isn't risk just like a 4-letter word that funders use when they don't want to give you money for this shit? What is it? A story about women, for women, by women? Well, it's a bit risky. Actually, when I think about film and risk, I think of Merata Mita. I think of Merata risking her life and those of her children when she had reels of footage, withstood months of police harassment and received death threats, so that we could see the true face of police brutality and state oppression in her film Patu.
That's right.
When I think about risk in film, I think about Awanui Bomsawan, risking her life for the plight of the Mohawk Nation when she spent 78 nerve-wracking days and nights filming an armed standoff between the Mohawks, the Quebec Police and the Canadian Army in her film Kanashitake, 270 Years of Resistance. When I think about risk in film, I think of the Red Warrior camp right now, capturing images on their cell phones of dogs being set upon peaceful, non-violent protectors at Standing Rock, North Dakota. Tēnā koe either. I see no risk in 9 women of Māori descent coming together to have a conversation about child abuse and murder. I see courage and wisdom. I see honesty and truth. I see hope and I see ownership. Because it would be a risk if we remain silent about this issue. Because 1 child every 5 weeks in this country is murdered because of neglect and child abuse. And really it would be a risk if producers like Kiel and Kerry were not commended for having the guts to conceive this project and back it from conception to end. That is a risk. And not only did they navigate the schedule around 9 bleeding vaginas, actually 8 because one's had a hysterectomy. They have championed 9 women. And that is no small feat. Apparently when WARU was pitched, the response was, where are you going to find 8 Maori woman directors? Ta-da! Not only, there's 9 actually, wonderful women here that made this, but I could think of another 8 that could stand in our place and do exactly the same thing. There are many of us. It would be a risk if this concept was just a token gesture, towards the lack of representation of women directing, because honestly, there are many more of us, and they are right behind us. And while I don't mean to undermine the ambitious nature of WARU, I didn't risk my life to make this film. I wasn't in any danger, and I honestly didn't lose anything. In fact, quite the opposite, I gained a shitload. Of course, it was difficult, and there have been many challenges, but let those challenges be a part of our journey, not what defines this film. Shit, I got a wax yesterday. That was probably more risky to my leg than anything I've done on WARU. I mean, really, did I risk anything at all? Maybe a bit of ego and exposure to my fragility, the shit I didn't know and the option to improve on things I did. To me, that is not a risk. That's an experience. And it was a ride and it's still going. And risk is actually just a thought you can attach yourself to or not. It's a bit like this empty cloud. A bit like, well, that looks more like a fluff, like a lady fart, a fluff. Yeah. So, honestly, take it or leave it, fart it out of the room. I didn't risk my life making this film, and I don't think about risk when I think about WARU. I think about bloody time. I think about bloody vagina time.
Oh, this funny guy. How am I meant to follow that? I'm really nervous. I just have to say it straight away. This is terrifying. Woo! Engari, me tīmata tika. Kōrehi te manu, taikiri mai te ata. Ka ao, ka awatea. Tihewa mauri ora. Te mea tuatahi. Te wehi ki aihua. Nāna nei ngā mea katoa. Kororia ki tōne ngā tapu. Te whare e tūnei, tēnā koe, te papaki wahora, tēnā koe, tēnā kōrua. E ngā mate o te wā, haere, hoki ki te kāinga tūturu, mō haue te tangata. Ki Hawaii ki nui, Hawaii ki roa, Hawaii ki pāmama. Nō reira, e ngā mate, e oki. Ki te taha o tōku māma, no Tūchepi, he tarara no Tūchepi, Dalmatia. Ki te taha o tōku pāpā, he Māori, no Ngāpuhi, Ngāti Haua, Ngāti Apakura, Tūwharetoa, ko Awanui Simich-Pene ahau. Anō nei, ko taku pēpi tēnei, ko Paririmu tai mai o. So, kia ora mai anō tātou. He mihi nui tēnei kia tātou katoa, kua hui mai nei I tēnei rā, I tēnei ata, ki raro I tēnei kaupapa tino whakahirahira, ara ko ngā mahi kiri ata Māori, ngā wahine Māori. Kia ora. So, mine might be 6 minutes. When I first came, so it's really hard to talk about risk after I absolutely can identify with everything you just spoke about, Charles. And it's been an amazing process to come through this with these women. But when I first came on board for this project, I knew there were elements of risk involved. A 10-minute one-shot story shot in one day would be a huge challenge for all departments, from writing, directing, our actors, sound, art department, locations, right through to camera and grips. And I understood this from the beginning, and this is the exciting part that I was just I was up for this challenge. This is the bit that I was like, yeah, I want to get at this, let's do it, cool. And then I realised I had jumped the gun a little bit to the exciting bit, and for me, and hadn't fully digested what it would take to get there. I didn't understand what it would require of me to find my way into this kaupapa of child abuse. My risk was owning a story that spoke to child abuse. I struggled to find my way in. The subject matter felt too big and too risky to tackle. I felt like I couldn't contribute. I was too scared to contribute. And I had to find my way in organically through my own history. And that was really scary for me. So how much of myself should I put into this kaupapa? It felt risky to share a story close to me and my family, but I realised it was my only way in. And so I had to be careful, and while I felt like I had to be careful, I had to find the right story, one that I felt okay to share, and one that would also make a meaningful contribution to the overall kōrero. And it was a huge struggle, and I almost went home, and they all know it. And I cried for for the first part of our first hui that we had, because I was overwhelmed by the statistics, by the thoughts of my child, and all the children, all our tamariki. So yeah, it was a really big thing for me. But through a tough journey of discovery and incredible support from these women, I had a breakthrough, and I can't even begin to tell you what a relief that was, to finally find my story. The one that I could own, one I knew to be truthful and would drive me forward in this kaupapa with confidence. I collaborated with my good friend Josephine. She wrote our script and I directed it, and together we got through it. So Titty and Bash is inspired by a story about my mum back in the 1980s when I was a kid. A story I had grown up with but wouldn't understand the significance of until this moment. And then came Josephine, and Josephine and I, we can't actually remember when we connected on this project. It kind of just happened, and suddenly we're sparking over the story, and Josephine would then go on to craft the story into something new and quite exquisite, I think. No. And my fears around it began to dissolve as Josephine took the story and elegantly shifted it. So e kore mutu ngā mihi kia koe mō tēnā e whā. So yeah, an important and necessary collaboration for me to come through this project. And I have huge gratitude to the magic that brought us together and to our tūpuna who made it happen. And Titty and Bash has become our story, and I'm very proud of it indeed. So acknowledging this collective of women, skilled, talented, experienced storytellers, I feel extremely honoured to be up here with them. It's definitely the way to make films. And I'm excited about the future and what we'll do together soon. So, kia ora.
Okay. Yes. I don't need that. You can hear me, eh? I just feel like it's going to give me away. Okay. Tēnā koutou katoa. I te taha o tōku papa no Hukianga aho, ko Ngāpuhi te iwi. I taha o tōku mama no Scotland aho, no te iwi o Stewart clan. Ko Josephine Stewart-Tewhiu. Tōku ingoa. Fuck. Okay. I was really nervous about doing that because that's the first time I've ever introduced myself in Māori. And it's also very relevant for what I'm going to talk to you about today. So yeah, just a little background. I wrote the screenplay for Titty and Bash, and Awanui directed it beautifully. I like to call myself the silent nine in this group, or Iwa Vagina. Yeah. This is an image of me when I was 4 years old at kindergarten. I'm the one second to the left with her top half down. I know, I really wanted to be a boy when I was a kid, but that's like a different conversation. I chose this image because this is the last time I can ever remember identifying with my Māori culture and actively engaging in it. My mum is Pākehā, my dad is Māori, and as I got older I really avoided engaging in the language and the culture of being Māori. It terrified me, to be honest, and the longer I left it, the scarier it became. But I am Māori, you know, the haka makes me cry, a karanga will bring me to my knees, and it awakens this thing inside me, this dormant creature inside me that really wants to get out, and I've been pushing it under. So when I was asked to come on board as a writer for WARU, I thought I'd challenge myself, and to be honest, I also wanted to leave after the first day. I felt really white, I felt really ignorant, and I felt like my voice wasn't valid. I felt that because I wasn't raised Māori, my voice wasn't really relevant, and I've found my whole life, I've sort of been dancing between these two different cultures and these two worlds. I've always felt like I've had to choose between being Pākehā or Māori, and I did choose. I chose Pākehā, to be honest, because it was easier, and I grew up watching my dad struggle, this Māori man in a white man's world, so I chose Pākehā, and I could physically get away with it. But working on WARU, it forced me to engage with something that's been really dormant, really dormant inside me. My biggest risk, I guess, on this project was giving myself permission to really engage with my own culture, with something that is me. It's in my blood. It's me. And I had to give myself permission to write about it. I had to give myself permission to write about it. And I had to also not be scared to put my hand up and ask someone to translate for me when these amazing women would suddenly just drop into Māori and everyone's sitting around going, yeah. And I was like, yeah. Hold on. And I was like, awa, what are they saying? What does it mean? She's a very smart woman, Awanui Simich-Pene. I had to put my hand up and say, I've got no fucking idea what's going on. I don't know what I'm doing or what's happening. I had to be really vulnerable and honest with myself and where I came from, so that when it came to writing the screenplay, the characters themselves would be vulnerable and honest and three-dimensional. I'm a bit of a fan of Charlie Kaufman, so I'm going to quote him. Say who you are. Really say it in your life and your work. Tell someone out there who is lost, someone who is not yet born, someone who won't be born for 500 years. Your writing will be a record of your time. It can't help but be that. But more importantly, if you're honest with who you are, you'll help that person be less lonely in their world, because that person will recognise him or himself in you, and that will give them hope. I embraced my identity as a Māori Pākehā woman, and that was my risk. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou. Ko tarana ki te maunga, ko Katie ahau, mihi ki a koutou, ki aku hoa, ki te kānu ki hau hoki. This is M. Now, she's not dead. She's very much alive. This is M. And she doesn't have to take off her clothes and let her dark tresses fall over her breasts as she emerges from the river. We don't need to see that anymore. Well, unless it's just a fun action film filled with historical inaccuracy, because there's a market for that. So that makes it all right. M doesn't fit into the marketplace. She can't even stand up, actually. The alcohol, probably the pee, maybe a bit of pee, the antidepressants are swirling through that body of hers, a quotidian cocktail of coke. M is an addict. But she will get up, though, and she will be in her own action film. I took a huge risk, and I made a 10-minute, one-shot film with stunts, with prosthetics that were applied mid-shot, magically, a 10-week-old baby that had its own stunt double. Unfortunately, my film is historically accurate. M wears black. She is in mourning for her life. Not that she knows it, she thinks that the black tights make her legs look skinny, and the black bomber jacket makes her look cool. But she is the night. Te pō tangotanga, te pō uri uri. And like Runa, she is risking being scooped up by the moon for banishing and being banished for dabbling in the night. But it is day because the night is never long enough for addicts. If M was emerging from a river with her hair, which she did spend 35 minutes perfecting with the straightening irons, it would cover her breasts. But not now. Her hair just hides her face. It covers her mouth, because M doesn't have a voice. She hasn't had one since 1988. But M is now an action figure in her own action film. She is going to haul that totally wasted body of hers off the grass and leap tall buildings in a single bound. If she had tied her hair into a top knot, she could, like Taranga, slice that top knot from her head and swaddle her baby in it. M's a mother, but she won't be swaddling her baby in her hair as it stinks of smoke and vomit from when she threw up at 4:30 a.m. under the watchful eye of the moon. M is Papa Tuanuku. You can see that. She's at one with the earth. Ko M te whenua, ko te whenua M tā koto nei. She is one half of everything. Her other half, Ranginui, stands above her. Ko Ranginui e tū nei. M reaching up into the space. Rangi stretching down into the space, creating the tension, balance, longing, conflict that all good stories must have. But M doesn't reach up. She's too fucking wasted. Or maybe she's just fucked off with Ranginui getting all the attention. How come he gets to tell his stories all the time? Just because he's higher and brighter and fits into the marketplace? Why is it only the Sun Kings get to tell their stories? Why have we been blinded by the sun? But M is going to get up, and she is going to be in her own action film. But you're not going to like her. She does a terrible thing. She is an addict. She is Maxine King, Lisa Kuka, Tanya Shayla. The night, Te Pō, will pull at her, and she will leap tall buildings in a single bound, and she will overcome enemies with stealth and strength. Except the enemy is herself, her addiction and poverty and mental illness and racism and sexism. She will save the world for all of us. If Jesus had straightening lines, he would look like M. Because she will change. Because change can happen. Balance is achievable. The sun can shine, the earth can flourish, and we can share the space. This is M.
My baby just needs to go wharepaku. Tēnā rā koutou katoa, ko te mihi tuatahi ki tōna tātou nei rungarawa, nāna te timatanga me te motunga o ngā mea katoa, nō reira hei pā tēnā koe. Kia rangi e tui honei kia papa e tahotua nā tēnā kōrua. Kia koutou, te hunga mate e wehi atu te pō, moi mai koutou, moi mai. Kia koutou te hunga ora, tēnā rā koutou katoa. He uri tēnei no te taitokirau, anō nei no te waka o taunui, ko keisi kātou kui ngoa. My name's Katie, and WARU is my first short film. Thank you. Thank you. For me, when I calculate risk, there are three considerations that I make. What's the risk? How do I protect myself from it? And what's the reward for taking the risk in the first place? I, previous to this, worked in educational children's programming for about 6 years, and I'm an educator. I work at an early childcare centre. So child abuse is about as far from my personal experience as you can get. So for me, a great risk to me personally was breaching the subject matter. I knew it would be a massive undertaking, and I joked with my family when I got back from interviewing for the job, and they said, oh, you know, how did it go? And I says, yeah, I'm kind of 50-50. They're like, what do you mean? And I was like, that's amazing, and it's innovative, and it's exciting, and I love collaborating, and it's going to be awesome, and 50% of me is just like, yes! And the other 50% of me is out the door, just, nah, too scary, too painful, don't want to do it, you know. And that's how I left that experience. I was just sitting on the fence waiting for the call. And then I got the call. And you have to summon so much courage because it's so scary. And particularly for me as a new writer and film director, I don't particularly see that I have the skill to do something without actually doing it. I can't sort of step into something and write something so deep and scary and hurtful and then just go, oh right, much is it? So we had to take ourselves to these places, and we took ourselves to these places, and we cried, and we broke each other, and we allowed ourselves to be vulnerable, and it was really sore. And we had to develop a way to protect ourselves. And so I have a very supportive family. I have real life babies who I can care for and look after and who were able to heal me when I went to work. And I have a bestie who was my counsellor. She probably needs counselling after this film too. So I knew that I would have all of those things going into this. What I didn't know is how much we would look after each other. We created a safe space together, and we allowed ourselves to pull ourselves apart. And then we asked people to get on board with us, and we pulled apart crew, and we pulled apart actors, and we added children in. It was just a big crying shambles. There were literally times when we couldn't get off the floor. And whether you're writing fictional characters and fictional stories, the truth is that they're based on real truths. So, particularly in a one-shot, you have to be there. You have to experience it. And we were quite often on each other's shoots, and we're just crying all the time on each other's shoots. And the directors would call cut, and there were just these massive moments of silence where everybody had to collect themselves back together again, because you had to go to these real places. And fortunately for us, we could do that in a safe space and with a great amount of love, because at the end of the day, we have the reward. And the reward for me, that is the reason why we did this, why we tore ourselves apart, why. And it's because we wanted to start conversation. We want dialogue to happen, we want action to happen, and we want to save children. And this is a film, and this is a job, and we are directors, and we are women, but we want to save children. So if you look at the risk versus the reward, that cancels out the risk. To me, the reward is why I made this film, and why I took part in this kaupapa, and why I told my whole truth, and why I put my true stories and my true feelings and my heart into a story for literally hundreds of people to see. No, I made her up. It's because she's just a character. It's not real. I'm just really good at making things up. That's why this film was worth the risk for me. Engari he harataku tohi te tuataki tahi, he tuataki tini, which translates to success cannot be attributed to an individual. It's upon the contribution of a collective. And that's to those who have come before us, those who stood beside us, and those who come after us. Nō reira kia koe te wahine mari tau te kona, i aha i roto i tēnei harenga. Nei rā te mihi aroha kia koe tau. Kia koe te tāne i roto i tēnei roto i tēnā rā. That man, woo, he said some things. Kia koe rā i tēnā rā koe katoa.
I could stand up, but I'm not going to. Because I'll spend my 5 minutes trying to get back up off the floor. Risk. Yeah. What Chelsea, what all of you said. I really struggled
with coming here to talk to everybody because my risk is very personal, so I was trying to juggle as to whether I would share it with you or not. Because I am even newer than Kate, so I've never even been on a film shoot. So really, the risk of the shoot wasn't there because I actually didn't know what to expect. But 6 years ago, I became invisible. I got paralysed from the waist down by an illness that was so rare nobody actually knew what it was. And to many of my peers, my career was over. And I instantly disappeared from the industry. The industry that I had worked so hard in and loved. I was a documentary filmmaker. Being paralysed and lacking the required wheelchair skills and upper body strength, I needed to do anything more than to go backwards and forwards. I needed something to fill in my time. So I started writing, lots of angry writing. Risk is the potential of gaining or losing something of value, and my illness had robbed me of my mobility, my independence, and my life as I knew it. I was no longer the vibrant, charismatic go-getter that I used to be in my previous life. I was disabled. And winds, bless them, gave me a label. I was an invalid. So I wrote about it. Life was quite tough, but it was about to get quite a lot worse. Right. 2.5 years ago, my only son, Kingston, took his life. He was only 22. Now, I wanted to die as well, but I had to be strong because I had 2 daughters and he left a son behind, my grandson, who would grow up and never know his dad. But I had to sort my shit because I had responsibilities. So I wrote about it. After Kingston died, nothing really seemed to matter. Nothing was going to affect me the same way ever again, ever. Nothing mattered except for my things and family. So I started applying for everything and anything I could, and it didn't matter if I got it or not, because what was meant for me wasn't going to pass me by. And I applied for WARU. And because I got in, it meant that they obviously saw something like my mother did in me. And maybe I did have something to say, but that was my first risk, was, did I? And was it worthy? Being invisible, you kind of just sort of step back and you step back into the background and you just watch, and that's what I was dreading this. I was dreading this because everyone's looking at me. So yeah, risk read its head again, and of course I questioned my own abilities, and I literally had nothing to lose and everything to gain. So without thinking too much about what was going to happen, I found myself in collaboration with these awesome ladies, and yet another risk, 8 flash Māori woman. I certainly felt underqualified and even more gimpy because look at how stunning they were. But their support for me as the newbie was unparalleled. I couldn't have asked for a better group of Sheilas if I had taken myself. And this child abuse kaupapa is nothing new to me. All of my documentaries feature, in one way or another, either victims or perpetrators or the families of. So being part of the WARU team meant I could take the stories that I knew so well and dictate the outcome. I could save the survivor, whereas in my docos I couldn't. I could only be a witness and give them a voice. So I adapted a film that I had written a long time ago, some of my angry writings. I've got lots of them. Mere, that's Mere there, Acacia Hapi. I adapted a film I'd written, and I knew that I could save her. I could give her the power and I could give her strength. Whereas, I could give her power and I could give her strength, and I could call out the abusers, the community, and my risk was, could I pull it off? In one of our production hui, there were a few people that felt quite uncomfortable with the story that I wanted to tell, and what I had proposed to make and how I was wanting to make it. There was concerns about portraying abuse on the marae at a child's tangi by a Māori man, and the fear was that I was reinforcing the stereotypes. And being the newbie again, another risk: do I change the story to make it more palatable, or do I stick to my truth? I rang my koro and asked him what he thought. I was in a bit of a quandary because I really wanted to tell my story, but I didn't want to upset the balance. And he said to me, do it. It needs to be talked about, and if you have the opportunity to talk about it, it's your responsibility to do it, but you've got to do it right. So because we are women, we sorted it. I don't think men could have done it. I don't think men could have sat around the table and nutted it out, and we sorted it. And hopefully everyone was happy. I certainly was, because I got to keep my truth. So the biggest risk for me was to stay true to my story. I wanted to pay homage to WARU, our boy who was the centre of our film, and Miri, and to all of those that I know have been abused. And this time they win. They take back their power. And I trusted in the crew, and I was up front right from the beginning, telling them of my experience and what I didn't know, which was a hell of a lot more than what I did know. And they were respectful of me and not once made me feel invisible or inadequate. It's hard to be invisible, though, when I'm bleeding around on the Ogo. Story. Another risk was that I didn't realise that I was taking was that my two leads there never acted before. And like I said, because I didn't really know what I was doing, I didn't know what I could get wrong. So I just went for it. Acacia, Hapi and Mahutonga had never acted, so I left the technical stuff to the technical people and concentrated on my actors. My three experienced actors, Kimo, Antonio and Crystal, wrapped around Acacia and Mahutonga, and as did Casey and Ainsley, my pit crew I call them, because they were always there at the end of the phone when I needed, what do I do? What's happening? I don't know. What is this about? And they were always there, and Case was on set, so she was, my pit crew. It's much nicer than what you call yourself, but and everybody helped me make Miri. It definitely wasn't my film. It was everybody helped, and for me, the risk is putting myself out there again, standing here in front of everybody, talking about my life. But by far, I think the biggest risk is that you guys took on me, because I'm physically and emotionally damaged, and I thank you all for supporting me to be visible again.
Kia ora koutou. That image up there is kind of probably sort of represents one of my biggest risks, even though I didn't realise the risk I was taking till, I guess that's like half of my cast. So what happened was I was told we had to write this film in a one shot, which momentarily freaked me out, and then I got dangerously excited by it. And so I thought, one shot, it's kind of like writing a play, and I'm a playwright. I come from theatre originally, where you just, you can have this 10-minute scene. It's all in one take. And so I got really excited about it. How many twists and turns can I give in the story, and how many characters can I have? Oh my God. And so I kept adding new characters and ringing up Kyle and Kerry going, heads up, I just thought I needed a guitar-playing woman. So my protagonist is going to come running out, woman playing guitar in the field. Next minute, heads up, she's going to have like 3 kids around her. Oh, I know, I've done this other thing. A guy races through with a Pavlova drops. Big mess, people skid in it. Causes lots of disaster, it's going to be great. So I did all of this, and then I turned up, and it said in the kota, the story of a marae, the kitchen, and there was this huge cast, and I just went, you fucking stupid writer. Because the writer in me is fine. The director doesn't know what the hell she's doing. So that's when I was just about sick, and anyway, cut to the film was made. I remember I threw a proverb at them, because proverbs are always quite good. People think they have to listen to them. So, mā whero, mā pango, ka oti ai te mahi, which is mean, with all of us together, we'll get this work done. And then they got a little bit excited by that, so they all started helping out, and we managed to get this film made. So that was awesome, and they were just a fantastic cast. But I'd also like to talk briefly about, for me, the thing about this production, and it's been addressed by the other woman today in various ways, that wasn't a risk. And what wasn't a risk about making this film is the very thing normally for me that is the biggest risk of working as a creative in the screen industry, where I am usually or often the only one of me representing quite a lot of me. Where I have sleepless nights because I feel so alone or out of context, where I don't have sisters like these ones to call on, or talk me through or out of my angst that I feel, not just for myself, but for the characters I have helped create, and also for the audience that I really want to reach. I am usually or often the only woman. I am usually or always the only Māori, and although we pretend that that's all good, we all know quietly that I'm there to make it okay, to tick some boxes. I usually or always feel like a shadow of who I am. The on-screen characters that I represent are also ghosts. I can never quite get a grasp of them. Who am I say, and who are they? When I watched the trailer of WARU, my whole wairua was affected. It was the first time I had seen so many Māori women at one time on the screen. This is what I, as a writer, as a director, as an audience member, and as a person like you all who lives in this community, this country, had been missing. Gone was the trepidation I normally feel at being the only one. These women on screen and off were reflections of me, my family, and of the people I know. Charm, the 50-something-year-old woman who works in the kitchens of the marae, is the backbone of the iwi, and she's my personal superhero. Tiri and Bash, the Māori Terminator sisters, who risk their own lives in order to save a child. Yeah, bring it on, Tiri and Bash. Anahera, the teacher that fucks a man up against a bathroom wall and doesn't even care. Wow, what you say? Māori woman can be ruthless and sexy too? Get out of here. And then we have M, the waster, who we hope wants to make a better life for herself and her baby after she gets off the ground. But it doesn't matter if she doesn't, because she's only one of us. There's so many others. Mere, the child who, armed with the strength of her grandmother, takes on the perpetrators of the pā. Go Mere, go Mere. Hinga, the grandmother who relinquishes the body of her mokopuna when it's claimed by Awanui, another grandmother, in order that his spirit might find peace. Nairi, the news reporter who takes on the Mike Hoskins of this world and finds the courage on air to speak her truth. Mihi, the struggling solo mum who learns to let go of her pride and accept the help of a neighbour. We all know Mihi. We might have been Mihi. The WARU women are our world. They are our truth. And already for me, without even seeing the film, this project and the kaupapa that it carries has made it the most meaningful on-screen production that I've been involved with ever. Whitu Vagina, signing out.
Tēnā koutou katoa, he uri ahau no Ngāpuhi, no Te Aroha Hoki. I just want to add very quickly, one of the thematic premises we were working with in this story was if it takes a village to raise a child, does it then take a village to destroy a child? So risk to me is the courage to speak and walk your truth in the face of adversity, potential failure, friction and naysayers, because you wholeheartedly believe that the kaupapa of what you are serving must be voiced. When asked to speak today, I thought of these wahine Māori whom, when they walked this earth, did this very thing. Courageous Māori women whom at their own risk and safety at times changed the social and cultural landscape of Aotearoa. Dame Whenakupa, Merata Mita, Eva Ricard, Dame Katarina Mataira, Rāmai Hayward, Huia Koziol, and the last Māori queen, Dame Te Ātairangi Kahu. Here today with the land, Te Reo Māori, Māori cinema, our bicultural society and our understanding of one another, if these women hadn't taken the risks to pursue the kaupapa they deeply believed in, where would I be? Perhaps not standing here. And as it says on my collage here, the real risk is in doing nothing. And so when I was offered the chance to be a part of the WARU kaupapa around child abuse, in truth I was unafraid. I'd already seeded ideas in my play Patua, which was about child abuse, and I saw this as an opportunity to put more context around this issue from a Māori perspective. The greater risk in doing or saying nothing was that the people of New Zealand would continue to believe that the harming of our children was the Māori way. At our first sitting together at Te Toki on Waiheke, I remember saying to the other women, I do not yet know what the story will become, but somebody is coming to get that baby. It came from a deep weight of a belief that this little soul deserved to rest as peacefully as it could in this tragic situation. Before writing the story, I consulted with different Māori whom I respected. I asked one kaumātua, what is the tikanga for the tono, or for requesting the body? He replied to me, kai akui, it's up to you. So Rānui became the story of a paternal great-grandmother who comes to a tangi at a marae to ask for the tūpapaku, the body of her great-grandson, from his maternal great-grandmother. It's all in Te Reo Māori. Despite the truth that on many marae, women do not speak in formal settings, I had observed it amongst my Ngāpuhi people, whereby at tangi, or funerals, men and women would come on and talk directly to the tūpapaku, the whānau pani, and share their grief. The risk in having these kuia speak on the marae was more of a personal risk. I knew that my Te Arawa side, in Rotorua, would not approve. I decided to be Ngāpuhi. Though I created fictional tribal histories for both of the whānau, it is inescapable to base them on real-life tikanga. Out of respect for my Te Arawa whānau, I distanced my story from our protocols and aligned them more with the Ngāpuhi protocol. There was more room to move. Aside from the tikanga risk, another very obvious risk was the fact that I had written two queer characters that rarely exist on the agency books. I decided my queer needed to be native speakers of Te Reo Māori, raised in an environment which harks back to the old times, and willing to step into these roles. My casting director, Yvette, and I both knew that it was going to be a struggle to cast these roles, and believe me, it was. And just at the moment of despair, when I was doubting I would find my queer in time, Katie said two words to me that turned this casting dilemma around. Kararaina rangiho. A Tūhoe filmmaker and actress raised in an isolated community in the old ways. During our video call audition, she did a stirring karanga for me and owned the dialogue on the page. Despite her initial reservations around the heaviness of the kaupapa, she accepted the role of Rānui. The next mission was to find another kuia who could match Kararaina. One day I actually drove 2 hours to a small town to audition a kuia I'd interviewed a few months prior, only to discover she wasn't a good fit, so that was a very expensive risk. I asked Kararaina if she could think of anybody, and eventually she came back with the suggestion of her elder cousin Mere. When Mere sent in her tape, I was moved by the grief and dignity in which she approached the character Hinga. So needless to say, I cast her in the role, and this was Mere's first ever
role, the first ever job as an actress. And so I found myself not only with two strong queer leads, but they were whānau, a connection you can only wish for on screen. The next mission was finding a marae that would allow us to film this kaupapa. Understandably, marae were very wary to associate themselves, particularly due to the fact that we were putting an empty coffin, within their whare tupuna, and they believed that it would create a karangamate or call to someone to fill it. Ai, koina. I completely understood this fear, and though one particular marae declined in the end, I knew it was important for me as a Māori filmmaker to make sure that the spiritual safety of the project was paramount. You don't stop being a Māori because you're making a film. In the end, we found the perfect marae, down with the kaupapa, and coincidentally enough, they had an ancestor called WARU. The fit was blessed. The biggest risk I felt personally was working with a DOP, Drew Stewart, whose work I was unfamiliar with. I created extensive visual references for him, 23 pages of images and notes that reflected the tone, compositions, rhythm, pace, poor Drew, so that he could understand what I was asking from him. I had no camera pointing on my film until the shoot day, and my day prior to shooting was undoubtedly the most anxious I had ever felt coming into making something. We got it in the can. Yeah. We had to. You see, the story to me felt like an honouring of the voice of our ancestors, and there was no choice but to work hard and for me to do everything I possibly could with my cast, crew and story to achieve that goal. I believe that these amazing kui up here would have expected nothing less. There is no greater motivating factor than to serve kaupapa and to remember that our work is possible because of their work. We walk in the shadow of giants who have proven to us that the greatest risk can be in doing or saying nothing. May we never lose our voices, wahine mā. Tēnā koutou. Tēnā koutou.
Kia ora. Very surprised at the lack of tears. I might be the first. And the risk of going last is everything's already been said, but however. Can you hear me, Esther? Is this better? Oh. So, what's already been demonstrated, I think, and my first line is that the story about risk is really a story about truth. I thought the biggest problem would be not having any control, particularly coming as a producer, usually a producer, not being able to make the choices about crew, not ultimately being able to make the decisions. I also felt, though, in my experience, that as long as you know the rules, as long as you walk in eyes wide open, and as long as you can do the best that you can within the context that you're walking into, then that's enough. But what I understand now, and it's what Renae has just said, is that actually if somebody else sets the rules for you and always has, then the risk is to step inside that context and step inside those rules that you haven't created and not challenge them, because things need to change. So I want to mihi to you who have stood and spoke your truth, because it's not easy, because truth is the risk, to stand up inside this space, to stand up in a colonised industry, one that we're attempting to decolonise and have been doing, Merata's words, to decolonise the screen for decades. So on a personal note about risk, in the development phase was where Kerry and Kiel set a beautiful environment for us just to create, where the 9 of us essentially, and others, but essentially the 9 of us sat and talked without a schedule, which drove the producer and me crazy. I wanted to put some context around it and set some goals, but they didn't, and we talked, and then Casey would stand up and do some thing on the whiteboard, and I'd argue with her about what's cinematic, and the producer and me was going, man, I wish Kerry would just shut this down because this is such a waste of time. But no, it was the most awesome part of the experience because it really taught me to trust in the process. I always talk about trusting in the process, but actually just to sit in that space and just be allowed to totally free flow. And what resulted was after one day, we had essentially all of our stories. And within 4 days, we had our first drafts, which weren't far away from our final drafts. The energy of that space was incredible. And it resulted in this incredibly tight collaboration of women, the kind of the unbreakable bond that even when we became isolated or on our own, kind of returning to our homes or on our own shoots, we had this invisible thread to this incredible power at our side, at our back. But yes, I brought an idea to the table that I thought was really good. I was really well prepared, and I told everyone I brought myself to tears when I was telling everyone, and I thought it was this fantastic idea. And then we had some time to go away and think about our ideas and come back and present our stories again for our films. And I felt sick and I felt anxious, and there was this incredibly wonderful energy, but I didn't feel like I belonged. I just wanted out. And I told Kerry about it, and I said, I think maybe I'm just afraid I'm going to do a shit job. And she was very, she was very kind, and she consoled me. And I sat down after morning tea to what I thought was talk about my script. But what actually came out of my mouth was my truth. I started talking about, oh yeah, here it goes. I really want to get through without crying. Okay, just my fears as a woman and as a mother, my truth about where I really fit in this kaupapa and who I really am and how I really am and what I do and what I say. And there were tears, and obviously I had to just expose myself. And as a result, what happened is some of the other women started to share their truth. And it was painful, as some of the others had said, it was painful. And as a result of this, the table opened up and we shared our stories and we shared ourselves and our pain. And the greatest risk it ended up for me was telling the truth and exposing myself to these women and letting them know what my story and WARU was really about. And it's what I ask writers to do all the time. I ask them to find themselves in the material, to expose themselves in the material. And I was thinking, shit, it's not an easy ask, but I've always meant it. I've just never experienced it in that way. And so the greatest risk for me was just telling the truth and being laid bare and open. And the greatest reward was to be laid bare and open and to tell the truth to this group of women and to see how it made my story better. So risk is the truth and the reward is truth. And this is part of why women are missing in our industry. It's because of our process. Our process, this is our process. It's collaborative, it's emotional, it's deeply connected, it's fierce, it's fraught, it's scary when you're inside it, it's fucking scary when you're outside of it. And people don't get it. And the challenge for our industry is to trust the inherent processes that belong to us as women and as Māori women, and to back us in our truth the whole way. Kerry and Kiel, trusted us with this process from the outset. And then the current context of our colonised industry kicked in, as it always does. Budget, schedule, deadlines, delivery. I totally understand that. But you suddenly become torn because you've started in something that felt very sacred, and now we're into the phase of something that feels very functional. It becomes technical versus emotional, functional versus emotional, practical versus tikanga. It shouldn't be that way, because those are the rules that have been written for us. And now that risk of not being in control of the process feels scary again. And I'm going to quote Jill Soloway because she rocks. She's talking about the female gaze, Gaze. It's totally a joke. I stole that totally. And I'll use it in this context to talk about the female Māori gaze. The female gaze is political protagonism, and it is not afraid to ask, what is toxic masculinity and when are we going to be done with it? The female gaze is more than a camera or a shooting style. It is an empathy generator that says, I was there in that room. I was there, and this is my shame, and this is my shame, and this is my life, and this is my humour, and I will take all of it, and I will put it into my protagonist, and I will light it, and I will have music, and we will side with her. Kia ora.
It's question time. If anybody's got any.
Oh, we've probably. I think we've got. Yeah, we've kind of gone a little bit over time, but if you've got a really burning question, we can take.
No pressure.
Down there, Sharon.
Yeah.
Do you want this, Sharon?
Okay.
I think that's absolutely amazing. It's really, really important. But I said to Ainsley just a couple of weeks ago, I want to see this on the big screen. Yeah. Probably not with popcorn or tissues. But what are your plans? Can we go to
We need a distributor.
Michael, they need a distributor.
Thanks, Sharon.
Our plan from the beginning was that was kind of our agenda was to get it a theatrical release, and it was the challenge that we put to our filmmakers to take on this challenge that is kind of in a way designed more for an online release, but the challenge was to be cinematic because our goal is for a theatrical release. So yeah.
It'll be theatrical, but
Yeah. Nikki.
One shot is a nightmare. Why did you choose to do 8?
Because it makes up a feature.
We're a bit obsessed with one shot. I think we've been obsessed with that for a while, since 2009 or something. But also we wanted to, in order to, I guess, be innovative, be able to make the film in a non-traditional way, to be able to have this many women making that film and how that would work. So lots of those sorts of reasons. And budget. Okay.
8 is a magic number in the ancient Māori world.
Kia ora. No? We're all good here.
We're all good.